Good afternoon. My name is David Garofalo, and I'm with IANA, and I'm very pleased that you all are able to join us for today's webinar, Decarbonizing Supply Chains, the Collaborative Role of Drayage Charging Depots, sponsored by Zeem Solutions. And with that, I will turn it over to Nick from Zeem Solutions.
Thank you, David, and good day, everyone. My name is Nick Responti. I am the Senior Director of Sales and Port Initiatives at Zeem Solutions. Really excited to be here today with this all-star panel we have in our industry. We're going to talk about a lot of things regarding drayage charging depots. We're going to examine the commercial factors that make ports ideal locations for electrification initiatives. We're going to discuss strategies about engaging stakeholders across the supply chain and collaborating with those stakeholders to accelerate a successful transition to electric transportation. And then we're going to highlight some of the innovative solutions that all four of us are implementing to make this a successful transition. So we're going to go through some quick introductions for each of the panelists. I'll be hosting the panel session. Following introductions, we're going to have an overview about Zeem, the business model, our focus on port gateways as critical and strategic locations where we are deploying charging infrastructure to facilitate the transition to electric drayage. So before we get into that, just a little bit of background about myself. I've been working at Zeem now for a little bit over 3 years. Prior to coming to Zeem Solutions, I worked at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, specifically in the port department for almost 8 years. I did a few different roles there, but the two primary roles during that time were first government policy and community relations, and then I moved into the business development and industry relations team, really working with every stakeholder throughout the supply chain that either owns the cargo or facilitates the movement of that cargo from origin to destination, and really to increase cargo at that gateway, improve fluidity, whether it be the ocean carriers, the fleet drivers themselves, the terminal operators, freight rail, BCOs, freight forwarders. Everybody on this call knows the players. So we're taking a similar approach at Zeem to go after this market. And as I mentioned before, ports are critical to everything we do. So I will now pass introductions off to Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Jenny Abarca. My husband and I are the owners of King Theo Trucking, and we do that. We drive trucks. We have been, personally, I've worked in the harbor since I was 19 years old, and I happened to marry a truck driver. And in 2010, we purchased our first truck, and King Theo Trucking was born. We now are a fleet of 32, 5 of which are zero emissions, and we hope to keep adding the zero emissions trucks to our fleet. And I'm very happy to be here. This has been a really long journey for us, and it's exciting to talk about what's been working, what hasn't been working, and definitely how great it's been to collaborate with Zeem.
Thank you, Jenny. I will pass it off to Jill for an introduction.
Hi, I'm Jill Crick. I work for Ocean Network Express. I am a truck analyst. I'm the lead analyst for our green truck program. Prior to working for Ocean Network Express, I worked for FedEx. I worked both on the operations and the sales side of the business. Now I'm here at Ocean Network Express, and excited to be able to have conversations with everybody today. Talking about the transitions that are happening.
Thank you, Jill. Melanie, you're up, please.
Thanks, Nick. Hello, everybody. I was about to say good morning, but I think in some people's cases, not morning yet, past morning. My name is Melanie Delorier, and I work for Tech Equipment, which is a dealership for the Mack and Volvo brand. Just a little brief about Tech. We are headquartered in Portland, Oregon. We are family owned and mostly on the West Coast. Tech offers a wide range of products and services. Some of those services are rentals, leasing, trailers. But my role with Tech is I sell new trucks, and I've been with Tech now for 10 years. About 2.5 years ago, I started to get a lot of questions and inquiries about the EV product. To be able to sell the EV product for the manufacturers that we represent, we have to be EV certified. So I became Volvo EV certified about 2.5 years ago and Mack certified almost a year ago. We all know that the road to become electrified can be hard and long, but I am here today to say it is achievable, and I hope to be a good resource. And I appreciate Zeem inviting me here, and it's been great having the relationship with Zeem. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you all for those comments. You know, as everybody can see, there's a lot of collective experience around supply chain, goods movement, and trucking, and really Zeem and our business. We serve as a conduit between these stakeholders to help, you know, make the ultimate goal happen, is to have that transition, accelerate that transition, and make it easier than it really is, because it certainly could be challenging up front. There's no hiding that. But working with Zeem and partners like who we have here on this webinar actually help make that process happen much more seamlessly. All right, so now I'm going to give a little bit of background about Zeem. So in the most basic description, what we do at Zeem is we design, build, and operate charging depots for commercial fleet operators. We are putting these depots in or near major transportation centers like seaports, airports, warehousing and distribution, logistics parks, and customer sites nationwide. And really, our primary mission is to be a facilitator to accelerate the transition to electrification for fleets of all sizes, right? Our goal is to make this process as easy and seamless as possible. And you're going to learn all the ways we do that going forward. And another objective here, anytime you're talking about electrification, you're going to hear the acronym TCO, or total cost of ownership, total cost of operation parity. That is the objective in all that we do. And when you're talking about the Class 8 product, that is challenging to obtain still at this point, but we can do that through a combination of factors. One being the business model that we employ, two, leverage any and all incentives that are out there in the given markets, and three, getting that high asset utilization that I'm going to talk about at these depots. And we do that with, you know, the type of charging infrastructure that we provide. And to be clear here, I know we're focused on ports, and you'll learn that is a critical focus for Zeem going forward, but our depots support fleets of all sizes with Class 1 through Class 8 vehicles. And the way I like to describe that to customers and partners and stakeholders is each of these depots, the customer and vehicle composition is really representative of the market that we're in. So you're going to learn a little bit about our site in Inglewood, California later, that is just outside of an airport, Los Angeles International Airport, and you know, those types of operations are representative of that market. You know, flash forward to our Long Beach depot that is being built as we speak. That is literally in the center of the port. I'll highlight more about that later, but that will be, you know, 100% drayage operations. So we focus on all fleets. As long as it's commercial fleets, we don't cover personal vehicles, but the goal is to facilitate and support the transportation activity near that, in the specific market we're in, supporting that gateway. And then ultimately, you know, our goal is to take this business model, which we're actively doing coast to coast, take these key learnings and bring the benefits to fleets all across the country, everywhere we're putting these facilities. So now just a little bit about the three primary offerings Zeem provides. The first one here, we call shared charging depots. That is the main business model that we're building and operating near all these transportation centers that I highlighted. But really, it's for multiple fleets to come and charge or park and store overnight. I'll highlight those services on the next slide. This is multi-tenant depots. It is not a public charging model. You need to get under contract with Zeem, but it is shared where, you know, hundreds of fleets can operate and at these sites that we service. Next offering is what we call co-located charging depots, where, you know, we'll go on to a customer site, handle their transition plans for their fleet, and then also carve out a portion of that site to bring in third parties. This type of model reduces CapEx, helps share in revenue, and really turns what is typically a cost center into a profit center for those fleets who are interested in having this type of infrastructure on their depots or their warehouses and distribution centers. And then the third offering here is in-yard infrastructure. This is dedicated for, you know, the one fleet specifically behind the fence charging, where we would still go in there design, build, and operate that infrastructure for that fleet. Because really, again, our goal is to alleviate all those challenges from fleet operators of making this transition so you all can focus on what you do best, and that is moving goods, people, and services. Fleets handle their core competency. Zeem comes in and manages the relationship with infrastructure upgrades, utility interconnect, building the sites, and then ultimately operating these sites so you can get the best out of that infrastructure and, get the best and maximize your investment in that infrastructure and those electric vehicles. So a little bit here about the services we provide at these sites. First and foremost, the most basic service is contract charging, or also what is known in the industry as opportunity charging. So in the most basic sense here, that is, Zeem sells electrons on a per kilowatt hour basis for fleets that need to, fill up or top off while they're running their duty cycles. Another benefit of being, in or near major transportation centers where there's a high volume of fleet and customer activity. And then you can get into additional services that we call, our depot services, more traditional trucking services, overnight secure parking and storage, vehicle service and maintenance. Perhaps you want vehicle washes. There's lounge access for drivers. And just to be clear, we are deliberately very flexible about the services we provide, knowing again how challenging this transition could be. A fleet could choose to charge with us and park and store overnight. Any and all those services are at a fleet's option if they want to work with Zeem at these depots. And then the third core service offering is more of the comprehensive package, where Zeem will go out and procure or purchase the truck for a fleet operator and lease it back out to them. And anytime we do that, the goal is to utilize and leverage really any and all incentives that are available in a given market to, again, get closer to that TCO parity that I mentioned earlier. And then, one very important thing to highlight at Zeem is we have 24/7, 365 operational staff at all of our sites, where fleet operators, they never have to touch a charger. And they come in the beginning of their duty cycle, they drive their personal vehicle to the depot, they park it in a staged area, they get greeted by a depot coordinator, their vehicle is charged, ready to go for the day. Well, we'll do a quick vehicle inspection and diagnostic, state of charge, everything's in good condition. Fleet operator takes that vehicle out, runs their duty cycle, brings it back at the end of the day, again, gets greeted by a depot coordinator. That depot coordinator jockeys it to a charger, charge it, and overnight, that is happening constantly, right? Just like a marine terminal operator wants to increase throughput, that's the same way Zeem operates. That's how we get that high asset utilization at all of our facilities. So that's the typical return to base model. And then if you're coming in to just contract or opportunity charge with Zeem, same thing. You pull in with your electric vehicle, you get greeted by a depot coordinator, you go to a staging area, you go wait in the lounge, take a load off, drink a coffee, get access to the Wi-Fi, clean restrooms, and then, you're going to see on, video monitors and screens throughout the lounge, the state of charge of your vehicle, how much time it's going to take, and then you'll get notified again by that depot coordinator when your vehicle is ready and you can go out and finish your duty cycle. All right, so now I want to talk about ports and why ports are so important to Zeem. Ports and dray are certainly near and dear to my heart, coming from my background, but that's not why they're important to Zeem. Ports typically or traditionally have been gateways to commerce. Now we view them as gateways to electrification, right? And then you also see here up in bold in the title, short haul distribution. So first, I want to talk about how ports are really the intersection of all types of transportation modes. While drayage is important for this transition, let's not overlook terminal operations, freight rail, container yards, and chassis depots. We all play a part in this effort, as well as the ocean carriers too. So every type of mode of transportation is being, part of this discussion, talking about decarbonizing ports and supply chain. So that's very important that, we all work collaboratively and collectively to accomplish these objectives. And then it's also typically a unique confluence of both public and private sectors, depending on which port you're at in the country. It's either an operating port or a landlord port, and some are owned by cities, state agencies, or by state agencies, if you will. But, it brings all these stakeholders together in an interesting way where you could collaborate to accomplish mutual objectives, whether they be regulatory compliance rules that have been established by these governing agencies or sustainability goals that either the ports or the governing agencies have established, as well as the private sector. They also have established their own ESG objectives in order to reduce scope 3 emissions, and we're seeing a lot more commercial traction on that front very recently. And then this other point here, location. Everybody in supply chain knows how critical that is, but to highlight specifically what that means for Zeem, again, that's putting our depots in these strategic locations focused on that short haul distribution market. Let's be pragmatic about what the technology can do today. Consider it anywhere from 200 to 250 to 300 miles a day. And we want to put our depots, and we are putting our depots, from origin to destination. So you put them at the gateway, the origin ports, and then the destinations, be it the warehousing, the distribution centers, the logistics parks, to facilitate that short haul distribution and seamlessly integrate into the supply chain for, specifically fleets, right? We are fleet focused. As I keep mentioning, that is critical to our business. That is Zeem's direct customer. We want to make this as easy as possible for them. And it starts with geography and location. And then also this, again, emphasizing commercial traction, working with the other stakeholders, like the ocean carriers, like the beneficial cargo owners, or the truck dealers, right? We all have a stake to make this successful and be a part of this transition. All right, so I want to highlight just a case study here. This stats you see on the screen are about our Inglewood, California depot. Now, this is not a port site, but we've been operating this site now for just about 3 years. It's been fully operational since the beginning of this year, and really the numbers speak for themselves at this site. Zeem's impact, you can see on the bottom there. It's to date this year we've dispensed 4.5 million kilowatt hours of energy and fueling over 123,000 charging sessions, and reducing almost 2 million kilograms of CO2 saved. So those are really big numbers. And this site, it's a 3-acre facility just outside of LAX that has 78 DCFC charge ports, 53 level 2 ports, and a 7.5 megawatt interconnection. And as I mentioned earlier, just want to highlight this point about the vehicle and customer composition. As you can see, we're serving rental and rideshare, passenger shuttling, last mile delivery, air cargo, and some drayage customers where, it happens to work for their duty cycle today. And then some of those will shift over to our Long Beach depot when we open. So I just wanted to walk through our expansion plans. I'm not going to, list all these sites. You can see them on the screen, but there's a key pattern here. All of our depots, as you can see, are located mostly on the coast near major port gateways throughout the country. But just a few to highlight that will be opening in 2025. We have Newark, New Jersey, Houston, Texas, Savannah, Georgia, Long Beach, California, as well as SeaTac, Washington. And you can't be a serious player in the port space if you do not focus on the inland rail market in Chicago. So we're also focused on a depot there that will be open by the end of 2025 as well. So just highlighting our expansion plans. And then to conclude, just about 2 exciting projects that, as I mentioned earlier, we broke ground on our Long Beach charging depot. It is centrally located in the port. We broke ground in the beginning of September. It is projected to be completed, fully operational, commissioned by Q2 2025. This will be, a mega site for all intents and purposes. We have 84 DCFC charge ports at this site. It's a 15 megawatt interconnect, and we can accommodate, approximately 500 Class 8 vehicles throughout a 24-hour period. And you can also see this stat here about, 22,000 registered trucks in the drayage truck registry. Certainly a lot of trucks to go around. It's approximately half of that, or a little bit more than half of that are the frequent callers. So this site is purpose-built for our drayage operators. The chargers that will be deployed there are the ABB A400, so 400 kilowatt chargers. highest powered that are readily available on the market today. So again, going back to that point of increasing your throughput and high asset utilization, those types of chargers are absolutely critical to our business model. And then really quick to conclude, coming from Port of New York, New Jersey, I'd be remiss not to mention this site where we'll be breaking ground in early 2025 on the sister facility of the Long Beach Depot, just outside the port of New York and New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey. So that concludes the presentation portion of the session. And then we are going to go into the panel session with our panelists here. So my first question, I want to pass it on to Jenny at King Theo. What has been your biggest success in the EV space to date?
Well, we've had so many. Definitely my relationship with Zeem, because until I met Zeem, I was kind of just didn't really know what avenue to take. I was having meetings with OEMs. Some of them weren't even showing up. I was kind of just like flailing. And Zeem actually introduced me to tech. And that's when things really started rolling for me. And tech was able to put my first EV package together of 3 trucks, and I didn't have to put any money down. And as they use the grants that are offered as my down payment. And as a trucker who is coming off a very difficult 2023, also a very difficult 2024, this was huge, because when these rulings happen, it's the drayage carrier that has to actually change, right? We're the ones that have to change or we become obsolete. And so this isn't an easy change. These trucks are more expensive. You don't fuel them the same way. So once I met Zeem, it became very clear to me that this can happen. There's partners that can make this happen for you, even if you haven't had the best year, and these trucks will work and operate for you.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to work with you and continue to be a partner. You know, these numbers speak for themselves on the screen here, right? And this is really just the beginning. And to your point, like if you look at, clean air initiatives across the country or at, several ports, it's always the drayage operator that gets targeted first, right? Where no one's paying attention to the other modes of transportation because you know what? You don't see them as frequently. They're not on the public roadways. They're not going through neighborhoods, right? So whether it be the clean air action plan, in the San Pedro Bay ports, or the clean air strategy in New York, New Jersey, or the clean air strategy in Northwest Seaports Alliance, the trucks have been, targeted in a way. And again, going back to Zeem's role and what we do, we are facilitating that for the fleet operator. We are focused on those challenges, and we understand those challenges, and engaging with folks like yourselves day in and day out, and other customers and prospective customers. We are seeing this. We are modifying as we go to always continue to accommodate that customer. So I want to pass the next question on to Jill at Ocean Network Express. And I would like you to tell us a little bit about the O&E electric truck program that you all are deploying over there.
Yeah, this is it's a very eye-catching truck, that is for sure. And just a quick snapshot of what that truck is. I mean, it is a Class 8 Volvo VNR. It's a beautiful truck. But let me talk quickly about the Ocean Network Express electric truck program. It aims to promote the use of zero tailpipe emission trucks, hoping that we can help navigate to a carbon neutral supply chain. It's an opportunity for small drayage companies to gain real world experience using a battery operated truck for their daily routes. And the truck program offers a complimentary 3-month lease. And then the Ocean Network Express has a regional partner called BoxLinks. They're a member of Alex Pantos Group. They manage the leasing contract and the operations of the program. But our collaboration utilizes the battery electric Class 8 Volvo VNR electric truck. And that trial period, gives that opportunity for the smaller drayage companies out there to use the truck. So the ONE electric truck program, it's made available partially through the HVIP. It is a very long acronym. It stands for Hybrid and Zero-Emission Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project. It's a very long acronym. And it's a resource that is hosted by CARB, which is California's Air Resource Board. And that is California's lead agency for climate change programs. So, one of the reasons that we do have this electric truck program out there is that it also helps to align with Ocean Network Express key initiatives. We have, for, including, carbon management, alternative fuels, community ecosystem building. It helps to further support, our company's goals and global ambition, to be zero emission by 2050. And if you are interested in driving the truck, there's the email address right there. You can send us a little email and then we can get you in contact with the folks who can help get people involved and being able to use that truck.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, that's great. And what's, really important in our industry sometimes is just showing that this technology is real, right? It's tangible and getting that experience behind the wheel in these assets. And I think that is a good transition to Melanie to talk a little bit about, what role does the dealership play when it comes to purchasing an EV for fleet or working with a partner like Zeem?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Nick. So let's say you partner up with Zeem on the infrastructure side, which we all know can be a large hurdle in the process of moving over to electrifying your fleet. So you sign up with Zeem, you've got the infrastructure figured out. Now what? So this is where the dealership comes in. There's a lot of different things that as a dealership, especially that tech does. We partner up with the OEMs. There's a large team of us. It's not just one person because there are so many moving parts when it comes to electrifying your fleet. So one of those pieces is because we do partner up with our manufacturers, we can do a very detailed product overview. That way the customer understands how does this product work and how is it going to operate in my fleet. Along with that, we do route analysis, which that will actually show the customer that this is how this truck will operate for my routes. And then that also helps them figure out what charging do I really need. And that also would benefit Zeem to help with that. And then it also helps you plan for future. What does my purchase plan look like for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years? So once you have a good path on that, then obviously you need incentives and grants to purchase these trucks because they are very expensive. So we have a grant manager that works with our customers to help them figure out which grants would help them the best. And a lot of these grants have to be submitted by the dealership. So building that partnership with not only with Zeem, but also the dealership is also very important. And then there's also the finance piece. So after you do get the grants, you're still probably going to need some help financing what's left over. So we have a grant manager that works with multiple lenders to try to get those financed. Now, and a lot of lenders are not on board on financing electric trucks. So that's where our finance manager has done very well in building those relationships. And Volvo Financial, of course, is one of our main contenders on that. And then after you have made the purchase, you have to think about how is the service going to look like after I own the truck. So with Zeem, they can also help with the service, but usually the dealership will be the one to help with that. And with the Volvo and Mack product, you do have to be EV certified to even work on the trucks. And our Fontana location that's based out of California was the very first Volvo EV certified dealership, which was back in 2019 because we were involved in the Volvo Lights project. And then not too long after that, La Mirada, which is all California locations, became EV certified as well. So we do have some service background and able to help with these trucks. So that's pretty much the role of a dealership. Not too much.
Thank you, Melanie. You're being modest there. That partner in this effort is absolutely critical. Zeem also has a policy and incentive team because not only on the vehicle side, but leveraging those incentives on infrastructure and site development is absolutely essential for this industry. And just to be clear, anytime Zeem is leveraging the available incentives, whatever market we're in, we look to leverage any and all as much as possible, but it's not to ingratiate Zeem. It's to pass those cost savings back on to the customer, right? To really support and accelerate this industry. So again, back to the acronym you're going to hear all the time in this industry, getting closer to your TCO parity. That is one of the most beneficial ways that we do it, and we work with customers to accomplish that objective. All right, I'm going to go back to Jenny on this question. And I think this is important because, while, what we do at Zeem, obviously we're proponents of what we do and it's been very successful. This is challenging and it's important to be pragmatic and very forthright with fleet operators in doing what we do. So Jenny, can you please highlight some of those challenges and really what has been your biggest hurdle, making this transition to electric drayage?
Sure. Well, I wanted to just touch on the trucks really quick because it hasn't been spoken about, at least from a carrier perspective. The trucks work great. They're amazing. It's like driving a big Tesla or Chevy Bolt. It's fabulous. The drivers love them. I was super surprised. I thought all my problems were going to be the trucks, and they're not. I thought all my problems were going to be the charging, and it's not. The trucks and the charging are the easiest part. It's really customers. That's what what has been the real hurdle, especially if they're not in California. They are not as well versed with the rulings here as maybe a customer that might be in California. But I've not gotten a lot of positive feedback from customers, and I haven't really had any customers that are willing to maybe pay a little bit more to have an EV deliver. And so that's been my biggest hurdle. It is starting to kind of turn around because if anyone's familiar with the WARE program in California, any warehouse that is over 100,000 square feet is now on a point system based on pickups and deliveries, and they actually get a big bill every year. And what offsets that bill is a delivery from it with an EV, a delivery or a pickup with an EV. So yeah, I really want customers to care about what we're doing to support me, because the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach has said no more diesels as of 2035. So this change is happening. And just starting January 1st, all 2012 model year engines are now phased out of the port. In 2026, all 2013 engines are now phased out of the port. If you want to grow your business, if you get a new client and you're going to have 40 more containers a week and you need a new truck or 2 new trucks to handle this, you cannot go buy a diesel and put it in the Port of Long Beach or the Port of LA. You have to buy a zero emissions vehicle to add it into the drayage truck registry. So these are changes that I have to make, that I have to make now. A lot of drayage operators are choosing to just kick the can down the road and not make this change. I'm doing it now. I want to do it now so I know how to run them. I know where to go. I have my charging relationship in place. I have my OEM relationship in place, and I'm able to get grants because every year there's less and less money for grants to support buying the vehicles. So I really need customers to say, yes, King Theo, you're doing this and we're going to support you. And yes, we're willing to pay $50 more for that delivery to Chino, or we're willing to pay $100 more for delivery into Riverside, because the trucks are able to go to Chino and Riverside. So really the biggest hurdle has just been getting customers, BCOs, shippers on board with what my business is trying to do.
Yeah, Jenny, that's spot on. You could see that the two main drivers that are in front of us in the industry. First and more obvious one really are the government regs and mandates that are saying, hey, this has to be done, right? And then you have your incentives. So you have a balance between carrots and sticks that are helping them to get this, launched essentially, this nascent industry off the ground, which it is off the ground. And then that leads to the second one, which is, undoubtedly, like Jenny highlighted, very challenging, but we need to get and continue to get more of that commercial traction, working with all those other sectors in the supply chain. And it's ultimately the cargo owner, right? It is their cargo. They pay the ocean carrier to move their freight from manufacturing centers to ports here in the US. And then they pay, the fleets to move it from ports to CYs and warehouses and distribution centers. And they have also several, or actually a good number of them now have established pretty aggressive ESG or Scope 3 emissions reduction objectives. And in order to achieve those objectives, it is working with really all the folks here that are on this call and others to get that done, to show that it can be done. And a lot of it is, educational and sharing information. I've been to a lot of conferences now and just workshops talking about this. And still to this day, when you explain the business model and what we do, a lot of people didn't know about it or are very interested in it after hearing about it and seeing how they can get their cargo moved on specific trade lanes in an electric truck. And that's, at a closer cost parity to diesel. We're not there yet. Let's be serious, like Jenny said, and there has to be a willingness amongst the stakeholders to pay a little bit more. A typical bill of lading will have a fuel surcharge in it now, right? This could be called the EV surcharge, and the goal is with the business model we're deploying and getting that high asset utilization, that we can continue to drive those costs down to make it more appealing for those cargo owners or the shippers that, the fleets are working with. So thank you for that, Jenny. Jill, I'm going to, go back to you on another question. Where have you found success with hiring electric trucks through your program and really in your typical day-to-day operations?
Ocean Network Express, we started on a journey to try to build a robust green truck program. I mean, we attended like TPM, IANA conferences, trying to promote the, green and EV truck program. As an ocean carrier, I mean, we don't own any assets. So we need to have, good conversations with motor carriers and EV charging providers. So we had to learn about those type of operations. We studied where those EV charging stations were being made available. Los Angeles, Long Beach is kind of a hotspot. And so we kind of started to focus in California. So we do hire motor carriers that, to move our containers, using EVs and other green technologies. Where we've seen the most success, again, is in the state of California. I think California has kind of created an environment that's friendly to green technologies and EVs. So they, they have created the incentive programs, that provide assistance for motor carriers. I mean, and I think that other states are learning from California's example. And, I hope that, that can continue in other states to, to help build that infrastructure so that we can continue to, to use EVs.
Yeah, Jill, that's a good point about, learning by example, and not only on the policy and program side, but, building out and Jenny operating these trucks, or Melanie working with the fleets to sell these trucks, right? It's like we continue to get this experience and we all just are getting better at it. And this is the way we're doing it, through these types of forums and collaborating together. Excuse me. So Melanie, next question for you. And I think this is, good one to be informative. And I see there are questions in the chat. Just a plug here. We will get to those questions, so please keep them coming. Melanie, how is purchasing an electric Class 8 truck different than purchasing a diesel truck?
So as I know, it's like duh, right? Obviously, diesel's a lot simpler. There's fueling available. There's no anxiety range. So there's all those differences, and you have to go through all those steps to purchase those EVs. I mean, weight plays a huge part in considering an EV purchase. Obviously, What is the range going to do? Weather, traffic patterns, things like that. So there's a lot of huge differences. The good thing is once you get set, like Jenny, I mean, she's got 5 of them now. From here on out, she knows what to expect. She knows where she can run them, and it's going to be just as easy as buying diesel. So there's hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. And then, real quick, Jenny, let's conclude, and then we'll go to some of the audience's questions. Why is this transition important to your business? You've been very proactive, and can you help highlight why this is an area of focus for you?
Well, I want my business to be here 10 years from now. And my husband and I, we have 4 beautiful children, and I worry about what we are leaving them, what kind of problems we're leaving them, what kind of issues we're leaving them. And I grew up on the beautiful Pacific Ocean, and I see in the last how things have changed, how climate has changed. Never in Long Beach has there been a 102-degree summer, and we just had one. So I just feel it's extremely important as a business owner. We're all pillars in the logistics community to not make this political and make this about really taking care of each other and taking care of the planet.
Yeah, well said, Jenny. I mean, alluding to a little bit what I said earlier, right? Ports, high industrial locations, but what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, no doubt cleans and improves local air quality, and specifically for those residents that live in and around these gateways. So that is, at the forefront of everything we do. So well said. Melanie, quick round here, and then we want to go to audience questions. What is the best segment to operate an electric Class 8 truck? And I think this actually will help answer one of the questions that have come in, at least part of it.
I mean, obviously drayage is a great fit. I mean, a lot of the zero emission trucks have been going into drayage. And the reason for that is because the drayage community has been hit the hardest when it comes to regulations. A lot of the funding available is geared towards drayage, but it's also the application. So usually drayage is a smaller range of where you need to go, but then it's also the stop and goes. So with the EV trucks, the regenerative braking gets you a longer range. So if you're just doing straightaways, you're just using up power. So those stop and go routes is where the EV trucks thrive.
Jill, anything to add there before we go into questions from the audience?
Like one of the, I guess, things that we were learning, I think, as technology changes and evolves, I think when we have our discussions with, customers and different motor carriers about, of what their transition looks like, I think one of the things that people maybe struggle with is like wrapping their head around electricity as a fuel. I think, it is a giant transition, and what does that mean, and how people look at their operations. I think that is like the key takeaway we've taken from like most of our conversations is the wrapping the head around that transition between electricity as a fuel. I think sometimes we kind of we know that needs to happen, but it's so out there, right? It's like so much in front of your face that you kind of forget like what that involves.
Yeah, well said. And anytime, and certainly Jenny can attest to this, but for fleets working with us, we can break that down through the software that we provide with our charging infrastructure on a per truck basis. How many electrons you're using per kilowatt hour, what are those equivalencies? So that information is available. You can do your entire fleet or per vehicle. And, back to the point of educating and sharing information, that is important because it is different, right? It is, back to what Melanie said about the difference between purchasing an EV over a diesel. That at the end of the day, they're still vehicles, but we are changing the way we operate. And, each of these solutions helps us get to the end point. So now I'm going to turn it over to David with IANA to start addressing some of the questions from the audience in the remaining 9 to 10 minutes that we have here. But thank you all. Great panel. Really appreciate all your input.
I would say absolutely a fascinating panel. I learned a lot, so thank you all very much. But we've got some questions from our attendees. So I'm going to put two questions together, and I think, Jenny, these are probably directed to you more specifically, though I'm sure that Nick and the panel can answer as well. What do people do with their trailers when coming in for a charge? And also, how do you deal with the heavy tire weight?
Okay, so we have a yard in Linwood, which is about 5.5 miles away from the Inglewood depot. So we drop our trailers or containers off at our yard, and then the driver then goes bobtail over into the depot and plugs in. The driver actually parks their car at the depot, and their start and stop is there. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and let me, Jimmy, let me just pick up on that question too. So for, Zeem's depots, depending on which locations and the amount of available land we have, we'll either offer that at the depot or partner with others nearby that are close enough, again, trying to seamlessly integrate into your supply chain and into your cargo moves, where you can discharge that chassis or that container on chassis, bobtail, come charge with Zeem, and go pick up that and continue your duty cycle. And then lastly, each of our depots will also offer a handful of pull-through charging where you can keep that trailer or chassis or container on chassis with you. That is limited, but that will be available for customers as well.
And we have another question, and that is, and some of this I think was covered in the presentation, but the person may have arrived late, but where are the locations for electric semi-truck charging? At port terminals, warehouses, or along the route? What is the average driving range with a full charge? And will electric trucks only be good for local markets? It's a threefer.
First off, the state of California, it has increased the weight limits if you are driving an EV. So your gross combined weight is now 82,000 pounds if you are driving an EV. And so I don't have a lot of weight sensitive freight. My heavy containers are usually going out of state. So I'm going to pull that to my local yard in an EV, which is also within the overweight corridor. And then one of my diesels is actually going to take it out of state. So it really hasn't been an issue for us. Also, the EVs are really for local work. And so we're not crossing a scale. So what the CHP doesn't know doesn't hurt them.
Sorry, I lost connection there. But to piggyback on that and the second question that David asked, most, like I mentioned earlier, it is focused on that short haul distribution market, and in some cases, Zeem are the sales team and the customer facing team. When we're talking to a fleet, they tell us about their duty cycle and their payload. We're very forthright. Either it works or it doesn't yet, right? And we want to be clear about that up front. And to your question about where the depot's located, when you're looking at a short haul distribution market, we're going to be mostly in the port gateways, but then also in the warehousing and the logistics parks along the routes or corridor charging. That isn't Zeem's focused yet. It is important for the industry, but the way I look at that and we look at that is that's a little bit further down the line. But again, if you are building these sites, designing, building, and operating these sites in or near major ports, they are typically near corridors and along the routes. And eventually, you will at least indirectly start to connect those corridors. I put my, transportation nerd hat on for my Port Authority days, and that will happen over time. But the focus is that short haul market. And I think, Melanie, you can probably add a bit, to that answer that question, whoever that came from the audience, because those are very good questions.
Are we talking about the routes or the
routes
range?
and range?
Range, yeah. So with the Volvo product, there's either a 4 battery pack or a 6 battery pack option. Our 6 battery pack is 565 kilowatt hour batteries, but usable is 452. That's our longest range. In the port application, we've been seeing around 220 to 240 mile range on that. And then, David, I'm sorry, was there a question about tire wear, or did I hear that wrong?
It was tire weight. It was
tire
the weight
weight.
of the, yeah, it was the weight
Okay.
of Yes.
sooner, the tear
Okay.
rate, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I hope I answered the question about range.
You did, thanks, Melanie.
Yes.
We're at just about time. So I don't know, Nick, if you have any final words you'd like to share, but we can wrap up.
Absolutely. First off, I want to say, thank you to our panel. Thank you to those who participated. We'll send out a follow-up email to those who joined with the slide deck and our contact information. Please feel free to reach out anytime. I don't want to speak for the panelists, but they're all very willing to collaborate and answer questions. We're here. Use us as a resource if you're interested in getting your cargo or operating an electric truck. Please reach out, and if we don't connect beforehand, everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank you, everyone. And Zeem, thank you for sponsoring today's webinar. Thank you all very much, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone as well. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.